Good afternoon and welcome. I am Imran Ansari reporting from the Law and Crime studios here in New York City. To start the show, we head to Jacksonville, Florida, where 16-year-old Aiden Fucci was sentenced to life in prison just this morning. The teen pleaded guilty in the stabbing death of 13-year-old schoolmate Tristyn Bailey back in February. The young cheerleader was found on Mother's Day 2021 with over 100 stab wounds. Fuji is eligible for a review of that conviction in 25 years. Before we get into sentencing, I want to discuss the letter that Fuji wrote a few days ago. He says, "First off, I want to say that I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all the pain I caused to the Bailey family. I'm sorry that you didn't get to know her that long. To my mom, I want to send my apologies as well. I'm sorry that she had to move her house because people were sending threats to the house and my family. Mom, now I miss your lemon pepper chicken. I miss your hugs. I miss you." So there's a lot to talk about here, and I have the perfect legal panel with me to discuss. Criminal defense attorney and former public defender Kesia Early in Florida, as well as litigator Richard Schoenstein here in New York City. Rich, I want to start with you. Do you think that the parents of the victim felt reading this, considering he apologized, but still spelled their daughter's name wrong? What do you think they make of that? Do you think that it was sincere?
I don't think they thought it was sincere. I think they thought it was way too little, far too late. This was, the judge said at the sentencing this morning, this was an incredibly egregious crime. 114, I think, stab wounds. No motive other than the defendant wanted to commit a murder. Just a horrible, heinous, despicable act. And the judge gave him the maximum sentence, and I'm not surprised. I don't think that letter offered any solace. I hope the verdict and the sentence offered a little bit of solace to the family, but I think nothing will ever compensate them for their loss.
Yeah, Richard, I totally agree with you. I feel that letter, you could never replace what happened, and it was truly a heinous crime. And Kesia, I want to get your opinion about this. Fuji mentions missing his mother's cooking, her embrace. What do you think emotions, if any, that evoked for the victim's family hearing that, as well as the defendants and, of course, the judge and the jury?
Yeah, I mean, I understand that he made an attempt to apologize, but again, I think that that was inappropriate at that time. If you're going to give an apology, make it a heartfelt apology and stick, in this case, with the victim. He also has access to his discoveries, so he had the opportunity to make sure, out of respect for the parents, that he even got the spelling of her name correctly. So the fact that he missed her lemon pepper chicken, it just seemed like the apology was more of an afterthought as opposed to a heartfelt, I really thought about what I did. And I agree with my colleague, just like what the judge said prior to his sentencing, this entire murder made no sense because it wasn't as if it was made in the heat of the moment or after passion. It was just a senseless killing from an innocent young girl who lost her life way too soon.
I agree. And with that, let's take a look at Judge Lee Smith handing down the sentence this morning.
This defendant's internal desire to feel what it was like to kill someone. It was committed in a cold, calculated, and premeditated manner without any pretense for moral or legal justification, and it was heinous, atrocious, and cruel. This factor and this factor alone makes this case and this defendant more than just unique. It is for this reason and all of the reasons previously stated that leads this court to the conclusion that there is only one appropriate sentence in this case. Mr. Fucci, if you and your attorneys would please rise. Counsel, is there any legal reason why this court cannot impose sentence at this time?
No, sir.
Mr. Fucci, having entered a plea of guilty to the crime of first-degree murder, I adjudicate you guilty of the premeditated first-degree murder of Tristyn Bailey. I sentence you to life in prison. Because of your age, you are eligible for a review of the sentence in 25 years. I order the Department of Corrections to notify you when you are eligible to apply for your review hearing. Madam Clerk, if you will please impose the minimum fines and court costs.
Okay, so Richard, Fucci had a minimum sentence of 40 years in prison. What do you make of the judge's decision to go with the highest possible sentence here?
I thought it was appropriate. The defendant really here had only two arguments. One, that he was very young when he committed the crime, and two, that he pled guilty. And I thought that was a strategy decision to try to get a lesser sentence imposed, not to put the court through a trial, but to plead guilty. But it wasn't enough, because on the other side, on the prosecution side, you had the absolute, most gruesome, horrible, motiveless murder you could think of, and that outweighed what the defendant had on his side. So it'll be reviewed in 25 years. A lot can happen to a person in 25 years. Maybe there will be something to review at that time, but for now, I think it was the right decision.
Yeah, and Casey, let's talk about that 25-year review. What kind of things are considered in a review like that?
Well, typically, once you enter the Department of Corrections, you have to make sure that you have good behavior so that you're eligible for some type of game time. So in 25 years, he has to pretty much be on the straight and narrow, no fights or no internal disputes or arguments with the inmates. And as you know, the adult criminal justice system, particularly with the Department of Corrections, it's very hard because you have those hardcore criminals who have admitted guilt or who were found guilty. So I anticipate that they're also going to see how well has he grown, whether he was a part of any programs, taking up any classes. The Department of Corrections offer various classes, so whether or not he'll utilize that time, that will be, of course, reviewed in his file in 25 years.
Yeah, of course. And of course, all this has taken a huge toll on the victim's family. And after sentencing, there was a press conference, and the victim's father actually mentions Fucci's letter in his statement. Let's take a look at a clip right now.
On a different note, during Wednesday's proceedings and the filings at the end of the day, there were several apologies given from Aiden and some members of Aiden's family. Foremost to his grandmother, your apology on the stand really touched us. It was the first time anyone in your family had acknowledged it, and we feel for you as we could tell how much you are hurting. With respect to the apology letter from Aiden, from his behavior at court, at no point has his actions fell in line with the letter, and I believe it is due to the coaching from the defense. With respect to the legal process that takes time, and to the comment from the defense about us not accepting the apology, I find that hard to stomach. The defense was insensitive to my family when they called out in writing our participation, which are our right to do so. They mentioned it in filings. They even went further by sending out a survey to my wife asking her opinion on Aiden murdering Tristyn. At no point did they have the common decency to give an apology, so I think they should reconsider their high ground before they advise anyone else on apologies. With regard to Crystal Smith and her apology, as I mentioned before, there's an open case with her, so it's difficult to comment. The fact that we are continuing to have to go through the legal process makes the apology questionable. You've seen the videos from the home. You've seen the videos from the interrogation room. I would say if she's sorry, she can start by accepting responsibility. To Aiden's family, I would remind them that he is still here. They can still see him. They can encourage him to change his behavior of bragging about his brutality and threatening the corrections officers and their families that keep him from harm and setting out on a better road. To those around his extended family, please extend them kindness. They should be given grace for the pain they are going through. They should not be given additional hardship. Tristyn had a good friend amongst his extended family, and treating them poorly based on Aiden's crime does not honor her memory or her spirit.